The gorilla lifted his flashlight higher. The beam crept through the leaves toward Ava's face. She stopped breathing. Rain dripped from the branches onto her camouflage jacket while mosquitoes buzzed around her ears. Her finger rested beside the rifle trigger, but she knew shooting now would expose her position to every hostile group in the jungle. Below her, the man grinned. "I saw movement," he whispered to the others. Another gorilla stepped closer to the tree and aimed his rifle upward. Ava slowly pulled her combat knife from her vest. If they climbed the tree, she'd have no choice. Thunder exploded overhead. For one brief second, lightning illuminated the jungle white. And that was when Ava noticed something behind the men. Two glowing eyes in the darkness. Low to the ground. Moving silently. The jaguar. The same massive predator from the crash site. The animal crept closer through the wet bushes, nearly invisible beneath the storm. The gorillas had no idea. Ava remained frozen. The jungle itself was hunting now. One man lit a cigarette, while another adjusted the photo in his hand. "She can't be far," he muttered. The jaguar crouched lower. Muscles tightened. Its tail flicked once. Ava knew exactly what was about to happen. "Don't move," she whispered under her breath. Suddenly, the jaguar exploded from the darkness like a missile. Roar! The huge cat slammed into the nearest gorilla, knocking him violently into the mud. Screams shattered the jungle silence as rifles fired wildly in every direction. Animal, animal. One man emptied bullets into the trees, while the jaguar dragged another screaming soldier into the bushes. Chaos. Pure chaos. Ava didn't hesitate. She jumped from the shelter onto a lower branch, slid down the trunk, and sprinted into the darkness while gunfire echoed behind her. Branches whipped across her face, mud sucked at her boots, rain blinded her vision. Behind her, men shouted angrily in Spanish. "They're following," Ava realized. She ran harder. Years of Army Ranger training pushed her body forward despite pain tearing through her shoulder. She crossed a shallow stream to hide her tracks, then moved uphill through thick jungle vines. But the rainforest fought her every step. The ground became slippery clay, insects swarmed her neck, every shadow looked alive. Then she heard it again. The jaguar. Closer this time. Ava stopped beside a giant fallen tree and raised her rifle slowly. The growl came from somewhere behind her. Deeper. Threatening. She turned carefully. Nothing. Only darkness between trees. Then lightning flashed. The jaguar stood 20 feet away. Rain rolled off its muscular body as it stared directly at her. Blood stained its mouth from the attack on the gorillas. Ava's pulse hammered. The animal had followed her. Neither moved. The jungle became silent except for rain. Predators respected strength. Fear triggered attacks. Ava slowly reached into her pack without breaking eye contact. She pulled out a military flare. The jaguar growled louder. Then Ava struck the flare alive. Bright red light exploded through the darkness. The jaguar hissed and backed away instantly, disappearing into the trees again. Ava exhaled shakily. "That trick won't work twice," she muttered. She kept moving until exhaustion nearly collapsed her legs. Hours later, she finally found temporary shelter beneath a massive rock formation beside the riverbank. Not safe, but hidden. She checked her supplies carefully. One rifle, 43 bullets, knife, wet matches, small first aid kit, half a protein bar, 2 canteens. That was all standing between her and death. Ava cleaned the cut on her forehead while trying to ignore the pain in her ribs. Then she noticed something strange on the half-burned map recovered from the helicopter. A small military symbol circled in red. An extraction point. Coordinates were partially burned away, but Ava recognized the area. An old American listening station, abandoned years ago during covert jungle operations. If she could reach it, maybe there would still be emergency equipment. Or a working radio. Hope flickered for the first time since the crash. But the station was nearly 40 miles through dangerous rainforest territory. And now armed guerrillas were hunting her. Ava leaned against the stone wall, fighting sleep. That's when she heard splashing nearby. Very soft. She grabbed the rifle instantly and crawled toward the river edge. Moonlight briefly pierced through storm clouds. A young boy stood in the shallow water. Maybe 12 years old. Thin, barefoot, terrified. He held a fishing spear and stared at her wide-eyed. Ava lowered the rifle slightly. The boy looked frightened, but not hostile. Then suddenly, his eyes widened in fear. He pointed behind her frantically. Ava spun around. A gigantic snake dropped from the branches above. The python wrapped around her instantly. Ava crashed into the mud as the massive serpent squeezed her ribs with terrifying force. The rifle flew from her hands into the river. Pain exploded through her chest. The snake coiled tighter. Ava gasped for air. The boy screamed. The python's jaws opened near her face. Ava reached desperately for her knife, but couldn't move her arm properly. The pressure kept increasing. Crack! Something in her side popped painfully. Her vision blurred. Then, thunk! The boy drove his spear into the snake's neck. The python thrashed violently. Ava finally grabbed her knife and stabbed repeatedly into the serpent's body. Blood sprayed across the mud. The snake released her suddenly and slithered wildly back into the darkness. Ava rolled onto her back, coughing violently. The boy stood frozen, breathing hard. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Ava slowly sat up. "You saved my life," she whispered. The boy didn't understand English, but he understood her expression. He pointed toward distant jungle hills urgently. Then he made gun gestures with his hands. "Guerrillas. Coming this way." Ava immediately grabbed the rifle from the riverbank and checked the magazine. Still usable. Barely. The boy motioned for her to follow him. Ava hesitated. Trusting strangers in hostile territory could get her killed. But staying here guaranteed death. Gunshots echoed faintly through the jungle behind them. The guerrillas were close again. Very close. The boy pulled her sleeve urgently. Ava made her decision. Together, they disappeared into the rainforest darkness while somewhere behind them, armed men and hungry predators continued the hunt. And far above the jungle canopy, a military drone silently watched everything. The boy ran through the jungle like he had been born inside it. Ava struggled to keep up. Branches slapped against her face while thick mud dragged at her boots. Every breath burned her lungs, and pain stabbed through her ribs each time she moved. But behind them, distant flashlight beams cut through the darkness. The guerrillas were still tracking them. The young boy glanced back repeatedly, fear visible in his eyes. He couldn't have been older than 12, yet he moved with the instincts of a survivor. "What's your name?" Ava whispered while running. The boy tapped his chest lightly. "Mateo." Ava nodded. "Okay, Mateo, keep moving." Thunder shook the sky again as heavy rain poured harder through the canopy. The jungle floor became a river of slippery clay. Then Mateo suddenly dropped flat to the ground. Ava copied him instantly. Voices approached nearby. 3 armed guerrillas moved carefully through the trees less than 20 feet away. One carried a shotgun while another held a radio. They can't be far, one man growled in Spanish. The American woman is injured. Ava remained perfectly still beneath wet leaves. A mosquito crawled across her cheek, but she didn't move. The shotgun carrier stopped suddenly. He stared directly toward their hiding spot. Ava slowly tightened her grip on the knife. One step closer, and she would have to kill him. The man raised his flashlight. Then, somewhere deeper in the jungle, scream! A horrifying human scream echoed through the darkness. The guerrillas froze. Another scream followed. Then gunfire exploded wildly. "Move," their leader shouted. The men sprinted toward the noise immediately. Ava exhaled quietly. Mateo looked terrified. "What was that?" Ava whispered. The boy made claw gestures with his hands. Animal attack. The jungle itself was tearing the enemy apart. But Ava knew better than to feel safe. Predators attacked whoever looked weakest. And right now that was her. Mateo guided her downhill toward a narrow cave hidden behind vines and rocks beside the river. Inside, the air smelled damp and earthy. A tiny fire burned in the corner. Ava instantly raised her rifle again. An old man sat beside the flames. Gray beard, thin face, sharp eyes. He stared at Ava silently for several seconds. Then he spoke broken English. "You are American soldier." Not a question. Ava kept the rifle raised. "Who are you?" "Name is Gabriel," the old man replied calmly. "Mateo's grandfather." Ava didn't lower the weapon. People survived in war zones by being careful. Gabriel noticed her hesitation. "If we wanted you dead," he said quietly, "the guerrillas would already have you." Silence filled the cave. Finally, Ava lowered the rifle slightly. Gabriel handed her a small metal cup filled with boiled water and herbs. "For pain." Ava hesitated before drinking. The warm liquid soothed her throat instantly. Mateo sat near the fire while Gabriel examined Ava's injuries carefully. "You fight snake and jungle already," the old man muttered. "Jungle's winning so far," Ava answered weakly. For the first time since the crash, Ava allowed herself a moment to rest. But her mind never stopped working. She studied the cave carefully. One entrance. Limited visibility outside. Natural high ground. Good temporary shelter. Not bad. Then Gabriel noticed the burned map sticking from her backpack. His expression changed instantly. "Where did you get this?" "From my helicopter," Ava replied. Gabriel stared at the red-circled military symbol. "You cannot go there." "I have to. American station is cursed." Ava frowned, "Cursed." Gabriel leaned closer to the fire. "Many years ago, soldiers built secret base deep in jungle mountains. Then one night," he paused, "everyone disappeared." Mateo looked nervous hearing the story. "No bodies were found," Gabriel continued softly, "only blood." Ava didn't believe in ghost stories. But abandoned military sites in hostile jungle territory usually became occupied by dangerous people. Still, it was her only chance for communication. "I'm going," she said firmly. Gabriel sighed. "Then jungle will test you." Suddenly, boom! An explosion shook the cave entrance. Dust rained from the ceiling. Ava grabbed the rifle instantly. Gunfire erupted outside. "They found us," Mateo cried. Flashlights appeared through the rain. The guerrillas had tracked them. Bullets tore through the vines covering the entrance. Gabriel shoved Mateo behind rocks while Ava crawled toward the opening and fired twice. Bang, bang. One enemy soldier dropped instantly. The others scattered. "American bitch," someone shouted outside. More gunfire exploded toward the cave. Stone shattered beside Ava's head. "We can't stay here," she yelled. Gabriel nodded grimly. "There is another exit." He pulled aside old cloth sacks at the back of the cave, revealing a narrow tunnel descending underground. Ava grabbed Mateo's arm. "Move!" The three escaped into darkness as bullets ripped through the cave behind them. The tunnel was tight and flooded ankle-deep with freezing water. Ava could barely see ahead. Then she heard something horrifying behind them. Growling. Low. Deep. Not human. The gorillas heard it too. Their shouting turned into panic. Then screaming began. Terrible screaming. Ava stopped briefly and looked back toward the distant cave entrance. Two glowing animal eyes appeared in the darkness. The jaguar again. It had followed the scent of blood straight to the attackers. Ava turned away quickly. Nature was finishing what she started. After nearly 20 minutes, the tunnel opened into a hidden jungle ravine. Rain poured from cliffs overhead like waterfalls. For now, they were safe. But Ava's strength was fading fast. Her injured ribs made breathing difficult now. Gabriel noticed immediately. "You need rest. No time. You die if you keep moving like this." Ava hated that he was right. Mateo suddenly pointed toward the sky. A faint red light blinked far above the trees. A drone. A military surveillance drone. Ava's heart jumped. "U.S. military," she whispered. She grabbed a flare from her pack and climbed onto a large rock despite the pain. "Come on," she muttered. The drone moved slowly across the clouds. Ava fired the flare high into the sky. Whoosh! Bright red fire streaked upward through the storm. For one hopeful second, the drone seemed to pause. Ava's face lit with relief. They saw us. But then, RATATATAT. Heavy machine gun fire exploded from the jungle cliffs. Bullets smashed into rocks around them. The drone suddenly burst into flames above the rainforest. Ava watched in shock as the aircraft spiraled downward and disappeared into the trees. Someone had shot it down. And only one group in this region had weapons powerful enough for that. Gabriel's face turned pale. "The cartel." Ava slowly turned toward him. "What cartel?" Before Gabriel could answer, engines roared somewhere deep in the jungle. Vehicles. Many vehicles. Headlights glowed through the rain like hunting eyes. Gabriel whispered one sentence that made Ava's blood run cold. "They know you survived." The jungle trembled as engines roared closer. Ava crouched behind the rocks with her rifle aimed toward the trees while rain poured down her face. Bright headlights bounced through the rainforest below, cutting through the darkness like searchlights. Not gorillas. Something worse. Black armored trucks rolled through the mud one after another, crushing plants beneath massive tires. Armed men stood on the sides holding automatic weapons. Cartel soldiers. Organized, equipped, dangerous. Ava counted at least 12 men. "Why would a cartel hunt one survivor?" she whispered. Gabriel's expression remained grim. "Because your helicopter was not accident." Ava looked at him sharply. "What?" "The cartel controls much of this jungle now," Gabriel explained. "Your military helicopter flew near something important." "What important?" Gabriel hesitated. Then, boom! An explosion erupted somewhere behind the convoy, lighting the jungle orange. Gunfire instantly followed. The cartel truck stopped hard. Men jumped out shouting. Ava saw muzzle flashes everywhere through the trees. Another group was attacking them. Gorillas. The jungle had become a battlefield. Gabriel grabbed Ava's arm urgently. "Now is our chance." The three slipped away through the ravine, while bullets and explosions echoed behind them. For over an hour they moved through brutal terrain. Steep cliffs, flooded jungle paths, thick vines sharp as wire. Ava's body screamed with exhaustion, but she forced herself forward. Army training taught her one rule above all. Pain is temporary, survival is not. As dawn slowly approached, the rain finally weakened. Mist drifted between giant trees, while strange bird calls echoed across the rainforest. Mateo suddenly froze. Ava immediately raised the rifle. "What is it?" The boy pointed downward silently. "Footprints. Large footprints. Not human." Ava crouched carefully beside them. "Fresh." Massive paw prints pressed deep into the mud. The jaguar was still following. Gabriel looked nervous now. "It hunts you." Ava stood slowly. "No," she whispered, "it's tracking the blood." But deep inside, even she wasn't sure anymore. The animal kept appearing wherever danger followed. Almost like the jungle itself had chosen a shadow to stalk her. Hours later, they finally reached higher ground overlooking a hidden valley. And Ava stopped cold. Below them sat a massive secret compound, hidden beneath camouflage nets and jungle trees. Armed guards patrolled towers. Satellite dishes rotated slowly. Military trucks moved between buildings. A cartel base. And at the center of the compound stood something that made Ava's stomach tighten. A large missile container. American-made. "This is what your helicopter discovered," Gabriel said quietly. Ava stared through binoculars taken from her pack. The cartel wasn't just trafficking drugs. They were smuggling military weapons. Advanced weapons. Then Ava noticed something worse. Several men unloaded crates marked with U.S. military warning symbols. Stolen American weapons. If those missiles left the jungle, hundreds could die. Ava lowered the binoculars slowly. "I need proof." Gabriel looked shocked. "You cannot attack them alone." "I'm not leaving that behind." Mateo tugged her sleeve nervously and pointed toward the jungle edge. Movement. Two cartel scouts moved uphill toward them with rifles ready. Ava immediately pulled everyone behind rocks. The scouts approached cautiously. Too cautiously. They knew someone was nearby. One man spoke into his radio. "Tracks lead uphill." Ava checked her ammo. 34 rounds left. Not enough for a direct fight. Her eyes scanned the environment quickly. Then she noticed loose rocks hanging above the narrow trail. An idea formed instantly. Military survival training. Use the terrain. Ava handed Mateo her backpack. "Stay hidden." She crawled silently toward the cliff edge while the scouts climbed closer. 10 feet. 8 feet. Closer. Ava jammed her combat knife between two unstable rocks and kicked hard. Crack. The hillside collapsed instantly. Huge boulders thundered down the slope. The cartel scouts screamed as rocks crushed the trail beneath them. One man disappeared entirely. The other barely escaped, injured but alive. "Contact," he shouted into the radio. Too late. Ava fired once. Bang! The scout dropped instantly. But now the entire valley knew their location. Sirens echoed from the compound below. Vehicles started moving. Ava grabbed the backpack. Run! Gunfire exploded from the valley as cartel soldiers stormed uphill after them. Bullets shredded trees around the group. Mateo cried out as branches exploded beside him. Ava returned fire while retreating through thick jungle. 3 enemies chased them aggressively. Ava ducked behind a tree and fired twice. One cartel soldier collapsed. The others kept coming, highly trained, not ordinary criminals. Then suddenly, Aroar. The massive jaguar burst from the bushes like lightning. It slammed directly into one of the cartel gunmen, sending both crashing downhill violently. The second soldier panicked and opened fire wildly. Ava shot him before he could recover. Silence returned briefly. The jaguar stood over the dead man growling. Rain dripped from its blood-covered fur. Its yellow eyes locked onto Ava once again. Neither moved. Then the animal slowly backed into the jungle and vanished. Mateo stared in shock. Gabriel crossed himself quietly. The spirit protects you. Ava didn't answer, because a small part of her was starting to wonder too. The group kept moving until sunset. Finally, they reached the mountains. And there, hidden deep between cliffs and vines, Ava saw it. The abandoned American listening station. Rust-covered fences surrounded concrete bunkers half swallowed by jungle roots. Broken radar towers leaned sideways against the cliffs. The place looked dead, but it was her only hope. Ava approached carefully with the rifle raised. The main bunker door hung partially open. Inside, darkness waited. Gabriel stopped outside. "We do not enter this place." "You can stay here," Ava said. The old man shook his head slowly. Many entered, none returned. Ava clicked on her flashlight, then stepped inside alone. Dust filled the air. Old computers sat covered in mold. Papers littered the floor. Walls were marked with strange bullet holes. But something felt wrong. Too clean. Someone had been here recently. Ava moved deeper into the bunker carefully. Then she heard it. A faint electrical hum. Power. Somewhere below her. Her heartbeat accelerated. She followed the sound downstairs into a dark operations room. And froze. A man sat in the shadows, wearing old U.S. military gear. Gray beard. Scarred face. Holding a shotgun aimed directly at her chest. "You shouldn't have come here, Sergeant," he said coldly. Ava's eyes widened. The man smiled slightly, because he already knew her name. Ava's finger tightened on the rifle trigger. The old soldier never blinked. Rain pounded the bunker roof overhead, while dim emergency lights flickered across the underground room. Dust floated through the stale air between them. The man's shotgun remained, aimed directly at her chest. "You know my name," Ava said carefully. "How?" The stranger leaned back slightly in his chair. "Because I've been watching you since the helicopter crashed." Ava's pulse quickened. "You shot down the drone." "No," the man replied. "That was the cartel." "Then who are you?" The soldier slowly stood. Tall, weathered, dangerous. His faded uniform still carried an old American flag patch. "Colonel Nathan Hayes," he said quietly. "United States Army." Ava stared at him. Hayes was impossible. The listening station had been abandoned nearly 15 years earlier. Everyone stationed here had officially disappeared. "You're supposed to be dead," Ava whispered. Hayes gave a humorless smile. "That's what Washington wanted." Ava kept the rifle raised. Nothing about this situation felt safe. Hayes walked toward an old control panel, powered by generators humming somewhere below. "This station monitored cartel activity for years," he explained. "Then we discovered something bigger." He pressed a button. A dusty monitor flickered alive. Satellite images appeared on-screen. Missile shipments, weapon routes, military transactions. Ava's eyes widened. American officials were involved. Not just cartels. Corrupt government contractors had secretly sold advanced weapons, to criminal organizations for years. Her helicopter mission hadn't been random. They were getting too close to the truth. They tried to erase us, Hayes said darkly. My entire team. What happened? Some escaped into the jungle. Most were hunted down. Ava slowly lowered the rifle slightly. So why stay here? Because someone had to stop them. Before Ava could respond. Beep, beep, beep. A warning alarm suddenly flashed red across the bunker. Hayes looked toward a security monitor. And cursed. Cartel vehicles surrounded the station outside. Dozens of armed men moved through the rain with military precision. They had been tracked. Gabriel burst into the room with Mateo behind him. They are everywhere. Ava checked her ammo instantly. 23 rounds left. Not enough. Hayes opened an old weapons locker against the wall. Inside sat military rifles, grenades, body armor, and ammunition sealed for emergencies. Ava almost smiled for the first time in days. Now we're talking. Hayes tossed her fresh magazines. You Army Rangers still know how to fight. Ava loaded her rifle with a sharp click. Try me. Outside, cartel soldiers spread across the jungle perimeter. Laser sights moved through the rain. Then loudspeakers echoed outside. Hand over the American woman, a voice shouted in Spanish, or everyone dies. Hayes shut off the speaker system calmly. They're coming. Ava moved into position beside a shattered window overlooking the entrance path. Mateo hid behind concrete barriers, while Gabriel loaded an old revolver with shaking hands. Then, boom! The front gate exploded inward. Cartel soldiers stormed the compound. Gunfire erupted instantly. Ava fired controlled bursts through the darkness. 2 enemies dropped immediately. Hayes blasted another with the shotgun as bullets tore through bunker walls. The station became chaos. Smoke, screaming, explosions. Years of military training took over Ava's instincts completely. Move, shoot, reload, survive. A cartel soldier crashed through a side doorway. Ava slammed him against the wall and drove her combat knife into his shoulder before disarming him. Another attacker appeared behind her. Bang! Hayes dropped him instantly. They keep coming, Gabriel shouted. And he was right. More trucks arrived outside. This wasn't an arrest. It was extermination. Hayes grabbed Ava urgently. There's one way out. He pulled open a hidden steel door leading deeper underground. What is this? Ava asked. Emergency escape tunnel. Another explosion shook the bunker violently. Dust collapsed from the ceiling. The cartel was breaching lower levels. Hayes handed Ava a hard drive from the control desk. All the evidence is here, he said. Names, weapon routes, buyers, everything. Ava stared at it. This was proof powerful enough to expose everyone involved. We leave together, she said. Hayes shook his head. No. Ava frowned. You won't survive alone. The colonel smiled faintly. I survived 15 years in this jungle. Then his expression hardened. But someone needs to hold them here. Ava realized what he meant instantly. No. Hayes grabbed extra grenades and ammunition. If that data reaches the outside world, this ends. Gunfire thundered closer upstairs. Mateo looked terrified. Hayes knelt beside the boy. Take her to the river. Gabriel nodded slowly, understanding. Ava stepped forward angrily. There has to be another way. There isn't time. For one brief second, the old soldier looked tired. Not afraid. Just tired. You remind me of my daughter, he said quietly. Then he sealed the hard drive into Ava's hands. Finish the mission. Before Ava could stop him, Hayes slammed the steel door shut behind them. Luck. Ava pounded the door instantly. Colonel. But Hayes was already gone. Seconds later, the bunker above erupted into non-stop gunfire. Then explosions. Massive explosions. The escape tunnel shook violently as Ava, Gabriel, and Mateo ran through darkness toward the river exit. Behind them, the listening station became a war zone. Finally, daylight appeared ahead. The group burst from the tunnel onto a cliff, overlooking the raging river below. Rainstorms had transformed the water into violent rapids. Ava looked back toward the mountain. Smoke poured from the bunker entrance. Then, WHOOM. A gigantic explosion tore through the jungle. Fire erupted from the mountaintop as the entire listening station collapsed inward. Shockwaves rolled across the valley. The cartel forces vanished beneath rock, fire, and concrete. Silence followed. Ava stared at the burning mountain, breathing heavily. Colonel Hayes was gone, but his mission survived. Suddenly, helicopter blades echoed above the rainforest. Ava looked upward instantly. 2 U.S. military helicopters burst through the clouds. Real rescue teams. The lead helicopter spotted Ava's emergency flare near the riverbank and descended quickly. Soldiers rappelled downward with rifles ready. "You Sergeant Ava Mitchell," one shouted. Ava nodded weakly. The soldier grabbed her arm. "We've been searching for you for 3 days." 3 days. It had felt like years. As the rescue team secured the area, Ava looked toward the jungle one final time. And there, standing silently between the trees, was the jaguar. Rain dripped from its golden fur, while its glowing eyes watched her calmly. Not hunting. Watching. Then, without a sound, the massive predator turned and disappeared back into the endless green jungle. Gone forever. Ava stared silently as the helicopter lifted into the stormy sky. Below her, the rainforest slowly vanished beneath the clouds. But she knew one thing for certain. The jungle had changed her forever.